Getting the smile and confidence you've been dreaming about, all from the comfort of your home, isn't a total mystery with Bite clear aligners. Just don't be surprised if all your friends start asking, "What's your secret?" Begin by ordering your at-home impression kit today for only $14.95. Bite clear aligners are doctor-directed and delivered to your door. Treatment costs thousands less than braces, plus they offer flexible financing, accept eligible insurance, and you can pay with your HSA FSA. Get 80% off your impression kit when you use code WONDERY at Byte.com. That's BYTE.com. Start your confidence journey today with Byte.
That's not just the sound of that first sip of Morning Joe. It's the sound of someone shopping for a car on Carvana from the comfort of home.
That's a good blend.
It's time to take it easy, like answering some easy questions to get pre-qualified for a car in minutes.
Talk about starting the morning right.
Just like customizing your terms so your car fits your budget. Visit Carvana.com or download the app to experience car shopping the way it should be. Convenient, comfortable.
Everyone has moments in life they just can't stop thinking about. Like that one time in middle school when you called your teacher mom. Yeah, that's not leaving your brain anytime soon. Or something amazing like the first time you really traveled and got to see how big and beautiful the world is. And on Baby, This is Keke Palmer, hosted by me, Keke Palmer, and presented by BMW, we know to savor the good memories and let go of the bad. And one thing everyone remembers fondly is their first time behind the wheel of a BMW. So come join me and BMW this summer as we explore pop culture moments and topics you just can't stop thinking about on Baby, This is Keke Palmer. Sponsored by BMW, the ultimate driving machine.
This episode brought to you by the following patrons: Leaf Girl, Min, Sex Caliber Bones a Lot, Madeline, Edward, Alyssa, Vixen, Holly, Natasha, Laura, Jeremy with the laser eyes, Allie, Logan, Libby, Aaron, Kristen, Amy, Tia, Jonathan, Isaac, and Karoon. And all the patrons want you to know you're loved, you're listened to, and you're a valuable member of this awesome Horror Virgin community. And if you want to hang out with us and talk, I don't know, some Godzilla is part duck theories, join us in the Facebook group where we'll be chatting about that and other things daily. I did think it was real fucked up that even though this alien is from space, it's still like down with the patriarchy, because the mom and the baby get taken separately, and then it's like, we got to put the baby with the mom.
Well, they do establish that the spider is a she, so I hate it when women aren't girls. Thank you for tuning into Horror Virgin. I'm Paige.
And I'm your Horror Virgin, Todd, which means I don't like scary movies, but you guys make me watch them. And this week, Paige made us watch Sting. So, Paige, when did you first see this movie?
So I saw it for the first time today. There's actually two different spider movies out. New releases, because that's kind of what we're going with this month. There's this one, and then there's one that's called Infestation, which I have also heard is very, very scary. But this one, I think, was up on more streaming services, so I picked this one. But honestly, I actually really enjoyed this today. This is like your perfect little 90-minute creature feature, and I can't be mad at it. It's pretty fun.
For a low-budget creature feature, I had a lot of fun, although I was scared because it was like, it is specifically the kind of scares that get me. It was like the jumpy scares and like, why does every creature feature that takes place in 4 rooms have like an air vent flashlight failure kill? Like every one of them has it. It always scares me. Like I'm never to a point where I'm like, I know what's going to happen, so I'm not scared. I'm always scared. I hate it.
There's a couple, and I'll highlight them in the movie. There's a couple things that don't work in this movie, but they're few and far between. And so, like, I give it high marks for doing a lot of practical effects. There's a lot of practical shit going on in this movie.
I mean, but the first 45 minutes of this movie may as well have been called Cotton Ball in a Jar. Like there isn't much going on practical effects wise until like the back half of the movie.
But there's a part of me that, like, as a writer, you are almost always thinking of like, how would we fucking make this, right? Like, how do I sell this to somebody, because we're gonna have to spend money on it. So like, how do we spend the least amount of money on this? And her carrying around a gross jar for 45 minutes of the movie, I was like, brilliant.
Yeah.
That's very smart.
In like a messenger bag for a child. Like
yes. It was good. And I do love that, like, we have a family unit with a step parent, but no parent is the villain. They're just adults trying their best who clearly love their kids and are just trying to do a million things at once because it's modern day and you got to work remote and life is too many things to try and make ends meet. And it felt very real. The struggles they have as a family felt incredibly real. And I really appreciated that.
Oh, I bet every stepdad out there was like crying at the end of this movie and was
sure.
Yeah, you do have to like fucking kill yourself to get your stepkids to call you dad.
I think she would have called him dad regardless. I feel like the movie does a great job of really depicting that they have a great bond together. And like, I did really appreciate that. But the reason I bring it up is a lot of low budget movies will not take the time to establish that emotional core that makes this a better movie. And it's one of those things that's kind of free because you can just write it in. And they took the time to do that. And one of the best cold opens I've ever seen in a movie. They did great.
Yeah.
And then to bring it around where you would have thought that was the end of the movie and it's not, and it comes back into play later.
Oh, I was so happy that Frank wasn't dead, honestly.
Yeah. I mean, I know Frank, spoiler, dies later, but like this was incredibly well written for what it is. And I appreciated that a lot.
I agree. And I think all the acting, like, which at least between like the core family unit, great.
Yeah.
Like the girl who played Charlotte was great. Like for a low budget movie, the acting in this is good.
Yeah.
It does have like the telltales of a low budget movie though. So like it all takes place in one building that from the outside looks way bigger than when we're on the inside. Like,
do we ever go outside it? I guess the one time, just when Frank is buzzing in. That's the only time.
There is a bunch of Shutterstock like flyovers of what is supposed to be this building
in Brooklyn. Yeah.
That it seems like everyone who lives there is related. But some of them are various like levels of Nazi, and that's weird.
Well, here's what the web I put together in my brain.
How dare you? How dare you make a spider pun in this movie, Paige? How dare you? Gordon Sumner would be pleased.
So, Gunter, the aunt, I believe, owns the building.
Yeah.
And is allowing her sister Helga to live there because Helga clearly is suffering from dementia or Alzheimer's, some memory disorder.
Yeah.
Helga's daughter, the little girl's mom, and essentially they've given Ethan, the stepdad, the job of building super so he can live there rent free. So this was them kind of giving them a handout. But really, Ethan is a comic book artist and he's trying to meet a deadline while also working the super job. It's a whole bunch of stuff.
Yeah.
On top of that, we meet 2 other sets of tenants, but just those 2. And they're 2 that she can access through the vents, which means I would assume they're not all on the same floor because she climbs up and down.
She does climb up and down, yeah.
But this building seems like it would necessitate way more tenants than what we see.
Oh, yeah. I mean, the building they show from the outside has like probably 20 to 25 apartments, and we only see 4. And they're probably, honestly, the same one, just reset.
It has the same cabinets. I'm about 100% that they are, at least portions of the apartment are reused and reset depending on which apartment we're in.
But I mean, that wouldn't be uncommon for a bunch of apartments in the same building. They would have the same sort of cabinets
they would
and
have the same
finishings and stuff. Yeah, it's fine.
Yeah. And I think it truly is a budget problem of like, okay, we can't see 40 apartments. We can't do this like Rec where we have, 20 people in one, apartment building.
Yeah.
We can really only afford 3 or 4, but we can fit the story together with them. And just the assumption is that we're just not seeing the other tenants.
Yeah.
Because this building has a boiler, a trash room, a compactor. They have an on-site maintenance person. They have a large contract with an exterminator, like things that a larger apartment building would have.
Yeah.
So I did notice it as well, but was also like, this movie probably didn't cost a lot. There's no big names in it. There's I get why this is probably happening, and I'm going to let it slide.
There are no big names in it, but like I was saying before, the acting's not bad. Like, it's not like it's poorly acted, so everyone's sort of nailing it, at least the main cast. I mean, say what you will about Eric's character in the movie, but I think that guy kind of still nailed it too.
He nailed it.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I have thoughts about Eric's character. I think they were right to initially tell her to stay away from him because I think that Eric was thrilled to kill the rest of the animals he had in his apartment and took a perverse joy in it. So yeah, I come down on the side of, I think Eric might have been dangerous.
Might have been?
But
when he asks
definitely.
Charlotte, does your parents know you're here?
Yeah, do your parents know you're here?
I didn't love that question from him.
Oof.
Yeah.
Yeah, no.
I mean, he might also be trying to cure diabetes or whatever with those fish in his house.
Yes.
But like, he is also a killer.
Yes. Well, he's got real Dr. Moreau energy.
Yeah, he does.
It's just, sewing shit together. Like an animal mangala. Like, it's real not good. Here's what I want to know. And there's not a ton of fun facts for this because it is new. I wanted to know what happened to Maria's family. It implies that they all died, but we don't know how. We didn't find out how.
At least the son. But yeah, I mean,
Yeah, at least a kid.
I forget that kid's name, but when she looks back at the photo on the shelf and that kid, it looks like the kid was cut out of a different photo and glued down to the photo that everyone else in the family is in. I laughed a little bit. It was pretty funny.
Yeah, it's played as him putting his foot in his mouth, but we might need to cut this out. My brain, because I was like, it is New York, and I was like, 9/11? Because I was like, when is this set? And I was like, no, she has Instagram. Like, that is definitely not what
It's
happened.
definitely not 9/11. Yeah.
Not 9/11.
Yeah. It might be 10/11. We don't know when that's going to happen.
We also don't know if this movie takes place in some sort of Cloverfield Godzilla universe.
Paige, if they had revealed that this was a Cloverfield movie at the end, I would have lost my mind. But largely because this is largely just like a spider creature feature.
Yeah,
but in
I
the
loved
first 3 seconds of you meeting the spider, it's an alien spider. They're like, guys,
Yes.
it's not just a regular spider, it's an alien spider.
Yeah, it's not just radioactive.
Right?
With great webs come great hunger. Like, this is an alien spider.
And it also has like a voice box that sounds somewhat like mechanical. Like it sounds like
Yes.
a computer trying to pretend to be a spider singing.
Yeah. Okay. Here's my pitch for an alternate ending for this movie. It might not be
Please.
good, but I'm going to pitch it at you anyway. They get to the end. Obviously, the end of this has an element that could lend itself to sequels if somebody chose.
Oh, you mean to zoom in on the baby spiders that are being born at
eggs.
the end? Yeah.
Mm-hmm. But yeah, my thinking was we cut to 6 months later. They've repaired stuff. There's new tenants. The comic book's out. Like, they're living their best life. And then they find a small spider and they're like, we got to call an exterminator. Who is it? Tom Holland. just new Spider-Man. He's like, I know a little bit about spiders. And just be like, this was a Spider-Man movie? Holy shit.
I know. If that was your into a Spider-Man movie where Spider-Man has to fight a huge fucking spider from space, how would you not love that movie? I'd play that video game in a heartbeat. I'd play that game.
100%. I liked it.
I liked the movie too, Paige. There were a few scary bits, but if you know where they are, I would watch this again.
Yeah, of
Because I
course.
wouldn't be scared watching it again because I know where the jumps are. But I have a perfect pitch for the sequel to this, and that is
Oh, okay.
those spiders and those eggs are born motherless because she was crushed like Terminator from the movie Terminator,
In a trash compactor.
right?
Mm-hmm.
So Ethan steps up again and raises these spiders.
Just like 101 Dalmatians, but with
Yes.
spiders?
100%. And it's just a movie page about him and his wife repairing their relationship.
There you
Wow.
go.
Training
That's what's up.
101 alien spiders. Also, who fucked that spider? Like, that's a spider from space. Is it going to be half Earth, half space spider?
All's I'm saying
Tell me what you're saying, baby.
is we don't know where Eric was for a large part of this movie. If those spiders came out with human features, like a spider body but human arms, or like all spider but human face, or like all spider but just a random human dick or something, like, I think we know where to look.
Paige,
It's as long as one of the legs and it drags behind it.
that's exactly what I was wondering. How does that work? So if you were walking through the desert, you could spot one's tracks real easily.
Yeah. You'd be like, where's this spider with 9 legs? Yeah, like one of that.
Wait, how many legs do spiders have? Like normal spiders?
8.
Is it 8?
Yes, 8 legs.
They have 8 legs.
Yeah.
That's like too many legs. I can't.
That's too many legs. Nothing needs that many legs. Looking at you, centipedes.
Look at you, centipedes. Man, I could have swore it was 6.
Well, insects are 6. Arachnids are 8. That's why scorpions also have 8 legs.
The world's a crazy place, and I'm not going to learn all the rules, guys. So if you're like, of course, that's what it is, leave me alone. I'm dealing with a dumb deck.
Look, in my defense, I'm verifying this right now because I don't want to get fucking emails.
Paige, let me confirm. I already looked it up.
Yeah.
Like when you said the answer, I was like, that's not right. It's definitely 6. And then I looked it up and I stopped talking about it.
In my defense, as a Scorpio, I have a personal imperative to know these things.
Ah, yes, because your personality type is arachnid.
Yep. Do you think it's funny that they called this sting even though spiders don't sting? Like, I know why they called it that because of The Hobbit.
I thought it was funny. I also really wanted to a few times in this movie drop in scorpions. Get over here. As
Just
the
from
spider
the spider
is pulling it. When the spider shoots from the air vent, we can't see the spider, mind you. We just see the web come out and grab Frank and pull Frank towards the air vent so they can not show the spider. Like, I get it. They're trying to save money. I'm not mad at it. I also do want to point out that Ethan and Charlotte help zero when Frank gets taken. They just sit back and scream.
Oh, they fully, it's Tim Robbins in War of the Worlds. They're like, he's a liability.
Yes.
Let it happen.
Yeah. And they do let it happen. And by let it happen, I mean squish his face. All I'm saying is that
love it.
All you see is the web and the pull. You don't see the spider at all. And it makes me laugh.
That is pretty great.
I know.
I think the one thing that I actually would have wanted a little bit more of that I think could have been used for some creepy elements is more of the mimicking, because we do see the spider, because the spider can mimic noises. We see it happen a couple times where it mimics the sound of the baby or it mimics the sound of the cat.
It would have been really cool if it had used that to kill.
Yeah, to kill, or mimicking somebody's voice or something. Would have loved, because it keeps it to kind of more simple sounds, I would say.
Yeah.
But I feel like you could do even more with that. So if they do a sequel, just keep it in mind. That was a cool element.
I mean, you could have the spider calling the cat in the voice of the mom or whatever. That would be cool. Although I don't want to see the cat died, but the cat died in this movie.
Yeah.
He was in the vent, held up. He actually sort of looked like Rocket from Guardians of the Galaxy a little bit.
A little bit.
It's like they took a Rocket doll and put cat hair on its face, but it was great.
Yeah.
Also, they probably kill the dog at the end of this movie, or it's sort of implied, because they show the babies opening out of the eggs, and then the dog is still stuck in the vents where the eggs are. So that dog's probably going to get ate up.
Yeah, that dog probably got dog murdered to death.
It's very sad.
Yeah, very, very sad. But a fun movie nonetheless.
Yeah, I'm not saying I didn't enjoy it. It was very silly. I mean, when she's reading the comic book and it's on one page of the comic, it's I'm sorry I killed you, Dad. And then by the end of that page,
then I can bring you back to life.
It's brings him back. It's exactly what happens at the end of this movie too, which is very funny to me.
Yes.
It's dad, death, and / resurrection foreshadowing, or Chekhov's resurrection, if you will. It was very funny to me. I also really worry, if she's if she's 20, and she's oh, hey, I can bring people back to life. I don't have to do it a lot. I've only done it once, really. But I brought my dad back to life once. So, if you die around me, you're fine.
It's fine.
Charlotte, you did not bring him back to life. Let me explain what CPR is.
Yes. Oof.
But she does have the best anecdote ever for a party. Ever.
She absolutely does.
Yeah.
She absolutely does. But not to beat a dead horse and go back to the dying animals. Is it weird that I didn't feel quite as bad because it was another animal doing it? And I'm an animal it's a hunter. It's just it's eating, and of course it's going to start small and get bigger. I don't know. I still don't love it, but
I don't like it either. I think I understand what you're saying, though, because if you see a human do it on screen, it is like, God, they're so evil.
yeah, they're so cruel.
But if another animal kills another animal, it is very much like, oh, well, it's like instinctual. Yeah.
Yeah, it's just the circle of life. Giant spiders eat small dogs. Yeah.
So, yeah, I see what you're saying. I don't like it in either,
That parrot had it coming, though.
That was the canary in the cobweb page.
Yeah, if you want to think of it that way.
So I'm going deep on the police jokes, guys.
Amazing. Amazing.
And if you're counting, that's the second of the episode. But maybe we should just go through this extremely short movie scene by scene.
Let's go.
Yeah.
Again, we were worried about this film because there were so many production companies at the beginning of it. But again, I think we have a case of a small movie needing to raise a lot of money and cobbling a bunch of production companies together to do it. So these are proving to be the exception, not the rule. But yeah.
I will say, I think that if they intended to make this movie, they nailed it.
Right.
If they were intending to make a serious and scary movie, they failed in a very great, fun way. Does that make sense?
I don't think so. I think they intended to make this.
Me too.
This feels intentional.
It does. To me, it does. But there were a lot of production company logos, so in my mind, I was like, red flag from jump. But what other movie was that? Well, Smile was one of those, and then
Smile was one of those.
Are they all from Australia? That's interesting that you.
Talk to Me was the other one.
Yeah.
And it was also from Australia. And then this past month, the Australian company that did Late Night with the Devil, there were a bunch of production company logos before that.
Shit. Okay. I wonder if it's just the way that the film industry works over there. That's more common.
That potentially.
No idea.
Yeah.
Because that's an interesting, I never thought of it like regionally like that, if you want to call it that.
Yeah.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
So if it's from Australia, you could trust a lot of production company logos.
You can trust all the production logos.
But if it's the after series, you know you're in for a bad time. That's all I'm saying.
If it's Wattpad Studios, fucking run. Do you know what I think would improve the after series? A giant
Spiders.
carnivorous spider.
yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
But one that just sits and listens to her and is like, I really do think you should leave Hardin. Just like, please. And she's just like, oh, spider friend, you don't understand. He truly loves me. I know.
Paige is just creating a fuckboy spider. Is it because he would have technically 8 shoulders, so you're into it? Is that what's up?
No. Remember, the spider is a lady, and so
good
I
point.
am
You're right.
picturing this spider creating a Pepe Sylvia type bulletin board of evidence to be
Out
like,
of her web, connecting it. It's a literal web of lies.
yes. Yeah, and just be like, this is why your boyfriend is trash. I know there have been 4 movies about it, and you should know by now, but just in case you're missing it, allow me to lay it out for you.
All right, coming this fall to CBS, Charlotte and Alien Space Spider in Web of Lies.
Web of Lies.
It's like Veronica Mars, but it takes place at the same college as Sex Life of College Girls.
Exactly. But then that spider is also just like Fairuza Balk in Waterboy with the sign that's just like, do you want me to kill him for you? Like, I can do it.
I love this.
Right?
This honestly, I'm going to green light this.
Don't hate it.
But I have unfortunate news about the budget.
Well, I have unfortunate news about my timeline. I have a lot of other projects coming down the pipe, so this is going to have to wait for some time.
And also, there's a pending rights issue because we don't own it.
No, and I also can't be on set because spiders. So y'all have fun.
I'm not going to lie, Paige. I wouldn't even want to be on set with the puppet spiders.
Yeah, I'm still, not super into it.
I'm out.
Although the puppet work in this, if it is puppet work, great. I don't have a ton of fun facts on exactly what they did. Some of it looks like puppet work, though. You can pick out some of the places for sure.
I'm almost positive there's puppet work because there's someone in the credits billed as
the
puppeteer.
puppeteer.
Yeah. Kalia Cannabis. That's not right. It's Kalia Cabanas is the puppeteer.
We'll talk about it as we get to the scenes because there's some very conspicuous scenes where I think it is puppets, and specifically I think it's very good. There's no bad puppeting in this movie. movie, but like we'll highlight it as we go through. Anyway, multiple production companies. But then we hear a news report of an asteroid cluster and an ice storm as a result.
Yeah.
We cut to, and we're cutting right into it. No long credits, nothing. It's Todd's favorite.
Well, I mean, we get the credits in a second, right? But it's really just the spider climbing through the model home it falls into. Not model home, but like the miniature model home, I should say.
A dollhouse.
Yeah, but it's cool. Like, it's just crawling through the dollhouse, and that's the credits. It's done in a nice sort of fun way, even though it's maybe not pushing the story along, but something's happening at least.
But we get story before that.
Yes, exactly.
Because we start on Helga knitting, watching an old horror movie. She hears noises in the walls and the vents. The sound stops, and they do some really cool camera work here, where it's almost as if it's from the point of view of the spider. It's almost Evil Dead shaky cam to a degree, where it's kind of like up high, down low, canted angles. We get shots of her apartment, establishing shots where it almost looks like her lamp matches her wallpaper. It's got a very cool look to it. And I was like, oh, I'm in immediately. But she goes to call an exterminator. And in my notes, I just have, I think you're going to need more than that, but fine. But on the phone, she just says, hey, there's noises in my walls like an animal. My name is Helga. And we see that she has it written by the phone. My name is Helga. This is my address. So we know immediately memory is a problem for her. She's living her own memento. And this is going to be an obstacle, I would say, in the movie.
Yeah.
But my favorite is she calls the exterminator and he says, haven't I been out there before? Aren't you the lady with the fucked up parrot? If you haven't seen the movie before, you're like, I didn't remember a parrot in that apartment. But once you've seen it once, you're like, how could you forget that parrot?
Yeah.
Of course you'd remember that parrot.
I mean, there's no way Frank will ever forget that parrot. I mean, Frank dies later this day, but I would never forget that parrot.
A couple days later, I think, but yeah. Or I guess, yes, because of the time, he does die later that day.
He does, quote, die right here. It's the cold open, right? But we find out later he doesn't die here, but he does die at the end of the movie, and it's still the same day.
Yeah.
So technically it holds up. I was right.
Yes, you are right. So he shows up. She has to buzz him in. He walks through and is like, I don't see anything, but it looks like you had other exterminators do my job and there's stuff leaking out of the vents and it smells. Like, what the hell?
They never really talk about what that is. Like,
oh, I had a dark thinking where, you know how spiders paralyze their victims and then liquefy their insides?
Yeah, well, they do talk about that in this movie some. So maybe it is that liquefied insides.
Yeah, and because that would smell a lot, I think.
Of course, yeah.
Yeah, but he hears the noises and is like, is there someone back there? And walks into a door that has a ton of locks on it.
It's too many locks.
Yeah.
It's too many. Like, service people that go into homes, if you go to what is essentially just a bedroom door and it has 3 padlocks on it, you make an excuse, leave the house and call the cops. Like, I'm not going in that room.
Yeah.
You don't come out of a room like that. That's my point.
Right. And we will find out that it is just to keep the dolls safe. There's like old antiques and stuff in there.
Yeah, people are after Gunter's dolls.
Yeah. But we see a blood streak and a hard hat and another body in the vent. That's a body we don't explore later in the movie at all. It is the other exterminator.
Exactly.
Yes.
Yeah, because the exterminators that are, quote, brothers aren't. They're people who we find out met in prison.
Right.
But are like just trying to I assumed they were actually just exterminators.
Same.
Frank is the only person that says anything negative about them, and he is a competitor. So, I'm not going to trust Frank on whether they're going to, quote, steal all your stuff.
Yeah.
All we see them is, pad the kill count. So, let's just assume they're good guys.
That's it. Now, he looks into the vent and sees the bloody body of the exterminator. It gets yanked back. He then immediately gets yanked into the vent and is almost immediately seemingly killed. We think he is killed. And Helga just kind of shrugs and goes back to the phone to call another exterminator.
It's like the spider, which we don't even know it's a spider yet, although if you saw the poster for this, you know it is, right?
Yeah.
So we haven't even seen that yet, and it seems like the spider has trained this lady with Alzheimer's to call for it.
Yeah, to be a procurer, basically.
Yeah. So, and it's more or less just calling takeout for the spider, which I thought was very funny. Yeah.
So funny. And hell of a cold open because this is your first entry into the movie and you're like, holy shit, it trained the lady? What is happening? What we will find out is that this cold open actually occurs in medias res, where later in the movie, as other things are going on, this cold open is happening.
Yes.
And this is our chance to see it while we are also following the other story, which is a very smart and difficult to pull off screenwriting move. So high marks to the person who did it.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was a good job.
I thought it was really cool.
We cut to 4 days earlier. A very, very tiny comet goes through the window in Gunter's doll room and lands in the doll house.
Yeah, like goes through the roof of one of the doll houses.
Yeah. And from that egg is a spider.
Yeah.
This is where the credits drop. So, like, we're already 20 minutes into the movie.
At least.
Not quite 20.
Oh, okay.
It's like 18. Yeah, something like that.
Sure.
Long enough. And this is where our credits are dropping. And I was like, man, I love people dropping late credits in movies after we've already seen shit.
It's not quite as late as Fresh, which is probably, I think, my favorite late drop of credits.
So good.
Because that's right where the turn happens, man. But I mean, this was great too. I'm not saying it. The cold open in this is solid.
Yes, absolutely.
But it's written very much like like an 80s, like tight 90 horror, like creature feature. That's the way it felt to me.
Yep.
And it feels like the movie intentionally is trying to do that.
Yeah.
So it's like right into the action, and it's like popcorn horror at its best, low budget.
It's also got multiple homages and nods to creature features or horror movies that are in that tight 90 that are from that 80s era. We'll cover them as we go, but there's a lot of clear love for that kind of a movie in this movie.
Yeah.
So after we see the dollhouse, someone climbs out of the vent in the doll room. It's a little girl. This is Charlotte.
Yes.
Named for Charlotte's Web. Burned fun fact there.
Oh, really, Paige?
I figured it was obvious and I didn't need to hold on to it. Anyway, she sees the hole in the window.
Yeah.
She ignores it.
Can I ask why she went into this room to begin with?
Yes. So she picks up one of the old dolls, photographs it, posts it on Instagram, and says it's her next victim. We see her later drawing, and what she does is like alters the dolls, even like, and the one in the movie that we see, she decapitates it and then draws a scene around it.
Yeah.
Photographs it and posts it on Instagram, and has like a following doing it, which is kind of just a small little through line that happens in the movie. But I do kind of like it. But it is, I think, because she doesn't like Aunt Gunter. Like, I think it's two-pronged. I think it's her being like, fuck this lady.
Yeah.
And secondly,
art.
Here's my weird recycled art form.
Yeah.
Yes.
I do like that she has weaponized her hatred for Gunter into art.
Yeah.
Wonderful. And her Instagram is Fangirl, which I was like, nice.
Yes.
That ends up being the name of the comic book, too.
Yeah. So she sees the spider in the dollhouse and takes it in a little matchbox.
Yeah.
Dumps the matches out, puts the spider in, heads back through the vents to her apartment.
And right now it's like an itty bitty little spider. It's like a baby little spider. It's very tiny.
Yeah. It's a normal spider size, I would say, where it looks like a grown-up spider, but like your average spider size. Not big, not small, but like a house spider is kind of what it looks like.
Yeah.
So we then meet Gunter, who heard her rummaging around in there and opened the door. She's already made her way back through the vents. But Gunter is like, I bet she broke the window. Even though it was broken from the outside. It wasn't her, but whatever. So Gunter calls the super, which we will find out is Helga's son-in-law. Gunter is Helga's sister.
Yeah, so it's like Ethan, who is the super, is married to
Charlotte's mom, who is Helga's daughter.
Right. And so that makes Gunter her aunt.
Yeah.
The family webs, Paige, right?
The webs we weave. Like webs through an hourglass.
I did think it was crazy that Gunter had a like performative German accent and literally no one else did. Like, I could understand why the daughter could, but Helga's is not that pronounced.
Helga's is pretty pronounced, and she sings in German at one point, but Gunter sounds like she walked off the set of The Producers.
I know. That's what I mean. It feels like if she was starring opposite Nathan Lane in a Broadway production of, I'm assuming, Austin Powers, like they would be the two henchmen and they would have a lot of great numbers, guys.
Yes, yes.
But she's acting like that.
Yeah, it's a little springtime for Hitler, for sure.
Spider time for Hitler.
Spider time for Hitler. We get a little of like vent vision as we watch Charlotte kind of crawl through, but this is a great way to establish our locations because she crawls through every apartment we end up in later.
Yes.
So she passes the living room with Helga and the cat and the parrot, She passes Eric's apartment, which in my notes initially I just have fish lab ?
And you know what, Paige? Fucking nailed it, because, yeah, it's a fish lab.
What it is.
Yeah, Eric's into some weird shit, and they never tell us definitively what it is.
We get a couple different answers, but regardless, Charlotte ends up back in her bedroom in time for her dad, or we will find out stepdad, Ethan, to come up and be like, hey, I know you're in your bedroom now, but were you in your grandma's apartment today? Because one of her dolls is missing. And she's like, I don't play with dolls. And he's like, yeah, all right. Like, I know you're lying, but whatever.
But, like, she's a 12-year-old, and that's her stepdad, so she was like, I don't play with dolls. I murdered them. Like, she does. And then posts it on Instagram for, I'm assuming, very strange people who were into murder doll content.
Yeah. She's like, I don't play with dolls because I ain't playing.
Yeah.
Like, I'm serious. Anyway.
I'll cut a Barbie. You know what I'm saying?
I'll cut a Barbie.
Can better. Watch out.
My job is beach. So this is where we meet her mom and her brother, I would assume half brother, Liam. And the mom basically is having her watch the brother. We see that the mom is taking Zoom calls for work. Ethan's taking calls about the comic book. So it's very much this, like, everyone is busy and no one has time for Charlotte. And we're establishing it immediately in, one very, very short scene. They managed to kind of build in that foundation.
I'm going to go ahead and just let y'all know that baby is definitely Charlotte's half brother.
Oh, yeah.
Because Ethan's the dad for sure. Like, he's the stepdad to her, dad to Liam.
There is an argument later on that would suggest that he's favoring Liam over Charlotte.
Yeah, that's why I was going to say that.
We don't see him do that in the movie, I would say.
Not at all.
Like, I think that is a thing thrown out in the argument to hurt him, but we have not seen it happen on screen, if that makes sense. Anyway, everyone is busy juggling stuff, which leaves her kind of alone to post her spider, a picture of her spider on Instagram, and to put him in a jar and say that she's going to call him Sting from The Hobbit. Now, I will burn a fun fact here that she names the spider Sting after The Hobbit, but Sting is actually not the name of a spider in The Hobbit.
No.
Rather, the sword that Bilbo uses to fight the spiders.
Well, and Frodo. Frodo gets it in Lord of the Rings, although it does make its first appearance in The Hobbit. So
that's right.
It's the one that glows. Like, everyone remembers it from the movies because it glows whenever orcs are around. So, yeah.
Yes.
Yes, I'm a nerd.
Anyway, we overhear a conversation with Ethan and his publisher, where his publisher is pushing to have his comic book done by the end of the week. And he's like, I've got a day job and a baby. I'm doing this at night. We literally watch him multiple times write or draw until he falls asleep at his desk.
Yeah.
Multiple times.
I mean, he's working 2 jobs, which you and I, Paige, have no idea what that's like.
Not a clue. I related very heavily to Ethan.
Me too. 100%. When I said that thing at the end about stepdads, like at the end of this, if I had a stepkid, I would have totally related, I'm sure. Because working my ass off all the time, Anyway.
I mean, for context, I drove back from San Diego this morning.
Today, yeah.
Yeah, today. We're recording this today. And as I was watching the movie to prep for this recording, I was like, shit, I gotta write that other outline after this. I was like,
yep.
Oh, I am Ethan. This is a problem. Anyway. We do see her kind of ignoring Liam, the baby, while she's playing with the spider. Because we do see that Ethan, her stepdad, gets called away to help one of the other units. And we hear a bonk and a cry. So clearly, baby Liam bumped into something or something. And he just goes, it's fine. He's like, it happens. I'm so sorry.
Babies do be bumping into shit, though. That's why they need constant attention.
All the time. But this is why I don't have one, because I'm too busy Ethaning.
Paige, I also be bumping into shit.
Same.
Yeah.
Same.
This is why Natalie worries about me on my motorized skateboard.
Oh, yeah. I would worry about you on a motorized skateboard, too.
I haven't fallen yet.
With your skinny titty baby bitch bones.
I haven't fallen yet, Paige, and I'm really enjoying it. It's great.
All right.
Yeah.
But when you eventually break something, I am going to write jokes on your cast.
I'm fine with that.
On purpose.
Yeah.
Right? Deal.
I would deserve it. Yeah.
So Charlotte finds a dying roach and feeds it to the spider. This is the part of the movie that is why I don't live in New York. And it is, there are a lot of reasons, just, financially, any number of things, but roaches, big factor. I cannot handle them.
Do you guys not have roaches in LA?
We do.
But she's like, not at my house. Gross.
Exactly.
I mean, same though. Like, we have an exterminator that comes like quarterly and puts like a defender around our house, like sprays stuff, you know, like,
a hundo. And I don't know. I mean, the movie establishes that they don't have a regular enough exterminator schedule.
I mean, this thing's from space. Oh, you mean the roach. Sorry. I thought you were going to like blame Frank for like the spider from space getting here. I'm like, he's not NASA. He's a local exterminator.
There's a plethora of roaches in this movie, a whole hell of a lot. I have lived in Los Angeles for almost, God, how old am I?
Old. We're all getting old.
Almost 16 years, like 15, 16 years.
Yeah.
And never saw a roach in any of my apartments.
That's good. That's a good run, Paige.
This is what I'm saying. The first time I saw one inside was when we bought the house, and it was only because it had sat empty and they hadn't had an exterminator. And for our first month, I think I saw 3. And that was too much. I was like calling the exterminator out every week. They hated me. But now we haven't seen one since. And so everything's fine. But that's what I'm saying. This is why. And I'm not saying New York automatically be roachy. I'm sure if you're crazy rich and you're in a fancy apartment, you don't deal with that as a problem. But I'm not crazy rich. So,
Paige, I grew up pretty poor. So like, I became accustomed to like roaches and ants and stuff being in like our kitchens and stuff. It's just the way it was, man. Which is gross. Like I don't like it either. Like they gross me out. So like I get it.
Oh, I can't deal. And we were poor growing up, and it was never a part of our house ecosystem, I guess. We had spiders growing up, and that I think that has very much fed my fear of spiders as an adult.
You do have a very big fear of spiders.
I have a very serious fear of spiders.
I did wonder if that was gonna like make this more scary for you, but
no.
I tend to think it didn't because of how sort of it's a little campy, which takes away from some of the tenseness of it.
Sure. I don't have a problem watching spiders on video or in movies. I have a very big problem with them being proximal to me. If there is not a barrier between me and the spider, I have a very big problem, and a very immediate and needs to be solved problem. So, but yeah, it was spiders for us for sure. Jake grew up with roaches, and as we've been dealing with some of like his mom's property back home in Texas and stuff, they got roaches. But it was a normal amount for Texas.
I'd argue that there isn't a quote normal amount of roaches to be in a home like that. Normal amount should be 0.
I mean, it's a rural home in Texas.
Is it a cave? Like what are we talking about right now?
I would say that when you are that far removed from society, there's a limit to how much you can mitigate the bug issue. To a degree.
I'm sure it depends on like how closely you live to like woodland areas or whatever, you know? Yeah.
And very in the middle of, yeah. Anyway, that's worse for me in this movie is the roaches than the spider.
That's so funny.
Anyway, so she feeds it to the spider and she looks away because the baby cries and doesn't see the spider eat. But that roach is immediately plastered to the lid.
Yeah.
Where like clearly the spider's going to snack on it later.
Well, and that also establishes the fact that the spider doesn't eat right away.
Yeah, it saves.
It puts you in a web and then comes back later.
Yeah.
So like at the end of the movie when she saves pretty much everybody except for Eric, which is I'm sort of fine with that.
Yeah.
It makes sense because the spider was saving them for later.
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly. So we cut down to another unit that has a chihuahua. This is Maria's unit.
Yeah. She's the one that lost her son at least, but possibly family.
Possibly family. I think it's family because we don't see any of them. So car accident, something? I don't know.
Yeah, I thought that too, honestly, but it could have been like a divorced situation and they lost their son, you know, like that does happen, unfortunately, when parents lose children. Oftentimes they'll split up, which is very sad, but
who knows? We just know they're gone. That's all we know.
Yeah.
But Ethan is trying to fix her pipes and a roach falls on his face. This is my living nightmare. Oh God, no, could not.
No, I could not. No, I mean, I would have been the worst Fear Factor contestant ever.
I would have never gone on the show.
Same.
They're like, you can't have the money. I'm like, that's okay. I consider this the cost of me not interacting with roaches.
Yeah.
There you go.
Yeah.
But this is where Maria basically comments that the person who owns the building doesn't do anything and they have an infestation of roaches.
Yeah.
And we see her try to essentially underpay Frank later. And so I think this has been something for a long time where they have had a problem and they're just not properly taking care of it. And Gunter is basically a slumlord. So
yes, which is insane to me because she's living with her family, more or less. It is
right.
Like she owns the building. I get all that. But like Gunter seems to have no real familial connection to anyone in this movie. So like she's just a full-on villain who talks like a Nazi, and that's very funny to me.
Oh yeah, it's like how do we make you hate her immediately? Dress her like a Nazi? Like, yes, dark 40s lipstick, Hugo Boss looking suits.
Yes, and like bleached blonde hair pulled
blonde
back.
Hair?
Yes. Like if we saw in her last scene that like the spider spit some of the acid that like breaks a body down from the inside out on her face and it like a little bit of black like hit right under her nose, you'd be like, I fucking knew it. I knew it.
Yeah, I knew it. But this is where we hear Liam cry from upstairs. And Ethan just says, oh, kids bounce back from anything. But he sees the picture of Maria's family behind her shoulder and is like, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to bring it up.
Brutal.
Yeah.
Brutal. It's the worst case of like, I stuck my foot in my mouth disease I've ever seen.
Oh,
and
yeah.
I literally had people walk up to me weeks after my brother died at school because it happened over the summer break and be like, hey, where's Logan? I haven't seen him in a while. And I would have to be like, oh, he died?
Yeah.
And it was like that level of like cringe in the movie because it is like similar subject matter even.
Well, and he clearly already knows about it and knows that she's struggling with it. And it was just like, fuck, why'd I do that?
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
Man, it was the weirdest thing. Have you ever like made a joke in that moment? And like, I'm not sure if I've told you this, Paige, but like when that guy asked me that, he thought I was joking. He thought I was like doing a bit.
Yes.
So like I then like had to be like, no, he really died.
Yeah.
And then I started going with the bit and I was like, no, he's fine. He's just been sick or whatever. I was like, no, he actually died. It was a car wreck. And I kept going back and forth. And like that guy never talks to me again.
Yeah, I would understand.
And years later at a reunion was like, bro, I thought your brother was alive until today. I thought you were just fucking with me and I had never looked into it again.
Oh, no.
Yeah, it was my 10-year reunion. I felt really bad, but I didn't know what to do. I was like 15 years old and I was having to explain to this guy that my brother died. It was like a weird trauma response where like I felt like I had to keep yes-anding him.
I mean, here's what's terrible. The funniest part to me is the reunion of him actually finding out and being like, oh my God, I was such an asshole. Like, oh no. That's pretty great for me.
But that kind of shit happened all the time, honestly. But I get it. It's like the people at school that like were friends with my brother, but weren't like call you on the phone, text you friends. You know, you just don't.
Yeah.
You know, it's like sort of like a coworker would be, you know?
Yeah.
So they're like, hey, I haven't seen your brother in a while. And I'm like, yeah, me either. He died. And it was just like brutal for these people. Like looking back on it, I feel like I like was given like the Uno card for the ultimate high road. And I just had to use it on people. It was very funny. I mean, it's very traumatic.
Yes.
But like looking back, you know, it's sort of funny.
What isn't?
Yeah. Tragedy plus time equals whatever. So
yeah. I have the opposite scenario where because of the circles I run in, I know a lot of people that bad things have happened to them that now they are at a point where they tell jokes about it.
Oh, you mean like me? Yeah.
I mean like the fact that I have two different friends who lost their feet to train accidents. And we constantly make fun of it. But in front of other people that aren't aware, they're like, what the fuck did you just say to that person?
Paige, as your friend, I feel like it was your duty to inform me that my chances of losing my legs on a train went way up.
Have gone up exponentially by being my friends.
Like that is something I think that the Surgeon General should ensure I know upon entering a friendship with you. I'm now concerned for anything below my shins right now.
You should be.
Anytime I'm around a train.
You fucking should be. The funniest part for me is that, because I met one after the other, right? So I knew one person that had lost their feet from a train accident and then met another person. And I was like, how did you lose your feet? And it was almost identical to the way that my other friend had. What are the odds?
Why are you stealing this other guy's bit? Because you guys are all comedians?
We're all comedians. I was like, y'all should battle each other.
I don't feel like they'd have a leg to stand on.
Nope. Yeah. Anyway, so she's like, don't worry about it, but hug your kids because I don't get to, basically.
Yeah. I also think she's a little into Ethan.
Ooh, I did catch the vibes there. I think she was just lonely and a drinker because he knew she was a drinker. And so I think maybe some of that is just,
I think those things are true, yes.
But we cut back to the apartment where Charlotte has now caught a whole bag of roaches. She has not been alone for that long.
And she can't go out.
Yeah.
She just went to the kitchen cabinets.
Ugh. But so she's feeding the spider, and this time she watches it feed, and it like Spider-Man like web hooks a thing and just like shunks it back.
This is the first time we see it Spider-Man something to death, and I was here for it.
I was here for it.
There are a few moments where I was like, hell yeah. And this is the first hell yeah moment. The next one is when you see it open its own lid.
Oh, yeah. It spins its own lid.
And then almost, it's not right then, but like a few scenes after that, you see like spider cam, like spider vision cam.
Yes.
And I thought we were going to get so much more of that, and I wanted that. So like when you see it like jump down and run to the vent, but you're getting its like view of that.
Love.
Oh, I was so excited for the things to come.
We get a couple sets of that in the vents and stuff, but that's mostly where we get spider vision.
Yeah.
But we cut to Ethan trying to fix the boiler. This is where we see the trash compactor. But he gets back to his apartment and he pauses before going inside. Like, this is our clue that he's just fucking exhausted because he just takes a minute. Then he goes inside and she immediately hands him the baby through the door where they're just like constantly trading off.
Yeah.
And she's like, I got to go put my mom to bed. But this is where she goes downstairs. We talk to Helga and Gunter, who are always watching horror movies on TV. She goes to tuck Helga in.
Yeah.
And this is when Helga says, oh, I made another sweater for your baby girl. And it is unfortunately covered in mothballs and smells, but that will come in handy later.
Yes.
But this is where Helga says, you should meet my daughter. And she just goes, I'd like that, takes the sweater and leaves, even though we know that this is her daughter.
Yeah. It's really sad. But I mean, like, it's not even her mom's fault. Like, she just doesn't, it's not there anymore, you know?
Yeah.
Explore the endless bounds of space with all new LEGO building sets. From engineering wonders like LEGO Technic NASA Apollo Lunar Roving Vehicle to astronaut dog walkers, there is a perfect LEGO set for everyone on Earth. First launched in 1978, space sets have been igniting people's curiosity through the ultimate creative medium of LEGO bricks. Their newest collection is sure to propel the wonder for exploration and adventure across the galaxies. Be inspired by LEGO sets that are out of this world. Visit Amazon.com/LEGO Space to see the full collection.
That's not just the sound of that first sip of Morning Joe. It's the sound of someone shopping for a car on Carvana from the comfort of home.
That's a good blend.
It's time to take it easy, like answering some easy questions to get pre-qualified for a car in minutes.
Talk about starting the morning right.
Just like customizing your terms so your car fits your budget. Visit Carvana.com or download the app to experience car shopping the way it should be. Convenient, comfortable.
We cut back to the bedroom where Charlotte is reading the comic that she and Ethan wrote together, which is actually very, very sweet that they kind of worked together on something. And he basically breaks the news to her, like, it's going to have a lot more copies. It's going to be a mainstream thing. I'm very excited about it. She wants to see the drawing, and she thinks the professor is too evil because she based him on her dad. This is where we will kind of find out that her dad, she views her dad as some amazing guy that's going to come back. But what we really will find out is that her dad left them and doesn't even live that far away and won't come visit.
Literally 25 minutes away. Like, I did sort of hate how she learns this information, but I didn't really understand why the mom is like lying for her biological dad.
Yeah.
Like, that didn't make sense to me.
It makes sense to me because I think she was worried that Charlotte as a young girl would take it as her not being worthy of that love.
That's fair. Yeah. I mean, and listen, like, I don't have kids, so like, don't take advice on parenting from me. I have no fucking idea. But like, it just seemed sort of like they were lying to her about.
She still should have told her.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Although, and maybe when she's 20, you have that conversation with her. You know, your dad really was just down the street most of the time you were a kid.
I mean, I wouldn't wait that long because.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I don't know. I mean, again, not a parent. Again, hashtag don't have kids, so like I have no idea.
I would think that you would want to tell her, and I think this is what the mom's plan was. It just kind of gets ruined. That she wanted to sit her down and be like, I need you to understand that this is not because you are not worthy of love or having a good relationship with this person. They are another adult who has chosen not to participate. And it's not because of you.
Yeah.
It's them.
It's because of them. Yeah.
But that's difficult for a 12-year-old to not internalize, I would say. So I understand her hesitancy.
Oh, man, if she has the revelation that her dad is down the street and doesn't want to have anything to do with her, more or less, and then Ethan dies and doesn't come back, she's going to have a lot of therapy bills.
Oh, yeah.
That's all I'm saying.
And, I mean, the movie kind of glosses over some of this, but we see pictures of them, and some of their conversations indicate that Ethan's been around for a long time.
Yeah.
Like, he has been in Charlotte's life for years, I would assume. And then they have Liam as well. I thought this had been a family unit for a long time. And we'll get to it a little bit later, but they do talk about some of the things and the relationship that she has with Ethan. Anyway, they all have dinner. The baby's kind of fussy. They're tucking the kids in for bed. And Ethan goes into her room to see if she's tucked in. She hasn't yet. But this is where he sees the jar and the drawings.
Yes.
And he's like, hey, can I borrow the idea of having a giant spider like for the comic book? And she's like, yeah, sure. But like, you owe me 90% of residuals or whatever.
Yeah. And I was like, what are you, the producer who was in that Kevin Smith story about the giant spider?
I know. I was like, oh, maybe.
I did sort of like wonder if this was like a wink and a nod to that, just because, you know.
I don't know.
Although this spider does become giant. Like, I get why they would do that and it wouldn't be related, but wouldn't that be fun?
Yeah, so funny. I do actually like their conversation here where she's like, I don't mind that you didn't take my idea, just don't pretend to like it if you don't. And I don't think that's what he was doing. I think he chose differently. He has to turn it in or whatever.
Oh, no. I think he was doing everything to diminish that character because it was her, I'm going to say, sort of deadbeat-ish dad.
Yeah.
I don't know anything about the dad story outside of what we hear from them, but he doesn't really want to have anything to do with her life, apparently, so I don't like him very much.
Yeah, for sure.
But I mean, I get why she would idolize him because she thinks that he has this important job and is in Thailand, you know? So he can't see her all the time. Yeah.
So she gets tucked into bed. The lights go out. The spider escapes from the jar.
Yeah, this is when we get that spider cam, right?
Spider cam to the vent. Yes.
He's no longer a spider in a bottle.
Message in a bottle by the police.
There you go. There you go.
Got it.
Yeah.
Why are we doing the police again?
Sting, baby.
Oh, fuck.
What are we doing, Paige?
I'm the one who told you to... When I suggested this movie, I was like, Sting, it's a documentary about the police. I was like, just kidding. It's spiders. See you tomorrow.
That is accurate. That is exactly what she said to me.
This is my own fault. Anyway, so the spider comes out the vent in Gunter's apartment, and it immediately goes to take out that parrot. Like, ain't nobody mimicking other people except me in this apartment complex.
And man, when the parrot is fully revealed and all of its, what I'm going to say is rotisserie chickened glory, it is hilarious because it is like clear the spider got in the cage and the parrot was trying to like peck its way
Get out of the cage.
while the spider plucked every feather out of it and like bit all over its like chickeny body. Like it's a terrible way to go.
Terrible, terrible way to go.
But it looks like someone threw a parrot beak on a rotisserie chicken and stuck it in a cage. And it's
not mad
awesome.
at it.
No, it's great.
It's like a little Cornish game hen that they just like posed in the cage.
I was like, why did the spider season it?
I don't know. Is that saison? The next morning, Charlotte's mom has meetings. Ethan's got stuff. And this is, again, just this like busy family. They're not paying attention to her having a venomous spider as a pet.
Right.
Her mom reminds her to wear grandma's new sweater, even though it smells like mothballs. She stomps away from the kitchen table. But this is where we get the discussion of like, I think she didn't like the thing with the glasses. And I think she's still tied to her dad, even though I'm the one who's here.
Yeah.
And this is where the mom is like, look, she loves you. She dresses like you. She wants to draw like you. You're her hero. She loves you. Like, you don't really need to worry about absent dad that much.
Right.
Because clearly she loves you.
This is very much you may not be her bio dad, but you're the dad that stepped up.
Yeah, of course.
That's this conversation. Although, like, I think the mom's name is Heather, and Ethan.
Yes.
Clearly, they're not like communicating well. There's some strife in the marriage, you know? There are nicer ways that she could have said this maybe, but she's not wrong here. Like,
yeah.
And it does show, I think there are like pictures in Charlotte's room that like he's been her dad since she was like a toddler, like a young child.
Yes.
And so like she has grown up. She wants to make comic books. Like she like is very much Ethan's daughter.
Yes.
Whether he helped make her or not.
Well, and I would say the communication issue comes from them both being burnt out.
Oh, yeah. And like sort of working opposite schedules and like raising a baby. And it's,
and they have multiple jobs. They have the baby. It's all in this one apartment. They're dealing with Gunter. Like, I don't think it's so much of them just not doing well as much as like life is pummeling them right now.
Yes.
The last thing they needed was a giant carnivorous spider.
And Charlotte fucked up and brought that home.
Oh, well. But this is also where we find out that her dad's been back for a long time.
For like 6 months. Yeah. This is where Ethan throws it in her face.
Not yet.
Oh, shit.
That is
That's
later.
right.
But this
Sorry.
is where Ethan finds out.
Yeah. Sorry.
Yep. We kind of cut through their day of like multiple meetings. He's drawing with Liam on his lap.
Yeah.
And then we cut over to Gunter's apartment where they have called Frank the Exterminator. And this is where he sees the dead parrot. And I'm like, this is why when he comes back in a couple days, he's like, aren't you the one with the fucked up parrot? Because you would never forget this parrot.
Which I like a lot because in this movie, we know this is where the events of that cold open, that parrot that he's talking about, this is where he sees that parrot.
Right.
So like, it sets up where we are in time and like what's gonna happen. And so I liked it. I thought it was great.
It was a great way to kind of solidify because we did get that title page of 4 days later, but like you forget about that by now. This is a great way to kind of reestablish that.
It's also all inside because it's like a cold snap and no one can really go outside.
Yep.
So like you're not really paying attention to sunrises and sunsets and sleeps and all that stuff. So you're like, I have no idea how many days this has been.
Yeah. But we established first that Frank carries a nail gun for protection.
Which is from arachnophobia, guys. Like that is the way like they dispatch the African, I believe, spider in arachnophobia.
It's Australian. They're Avenel spiders.
Okay.
From, I believe, New Zealand. At least that's the real spiders they used. But
oh, yeah. I'm not sure. I don't remember the movie well enough to remember where it happens in the story.
Yeah.
I thought it was Africa, but don't quote me on it. I don't remember.
Not sure. But this is where he's like, hey, normally maybe it would be a rat, except rats don't like attack from the inside. Like this bird's trying to get out and a rat couldn't have squeezed through the bars and then paralyzed and liquefied it. Like this is weird. And I do like that when they talk about the nail gun, they're like, protection against what? And he just says, it's New York, take your pick.
Yeah.
And I was like, perfect.
I do want to point out, because if you haven't seen the movie and we say there's a dead parrot in a cage, you're probably thinking it's laying at the bottom of the cage.
Nope.
And that's a fair assumption. But it is fully like holding on to the sides of the cage, trying to like beak its way out of the cage, and is dead, but still in that position.
Yes. It's singing with the bleeding choir invisible.
It is plucked even. There are no feathers on this parrot.
Yeah.
And it's like hanging like it's trying to, it's truly an insane sight. So I get why Frank was like, yo, that's a fucked up penguin. And I will always refer to it as such anytime I refer back to this moment in my life.
Yeah. And we cut over to Charlotte, who has found mothballs in her sweater because it was in her grandmother's drawer.
Because her grandmother knows the secret. That mothballs repel spiders.
Well, they repel most bugs, to be honest with you.
That's why they're called mothballs, because they repel moths.
But this is also where she learns that the spider can mimic. She plays bird calls.
Yeah.
So this is a lot of exposition and information for us, is that the spider can mimic noises and mothballs will essentially disintegrate the webs.
Yeah.
And that it has gotten a lot bigger. We then cut to her room. She's learning about, like, she's watching Monster Bug Wars. She's super learning about spiders.
Yeah, she's like taking a crash course in Earth spiders, which is going to help her zero. Because this is a alien spider, a spider from space.
Yes. But we then follow Frank as he goes to basically spray the whole building. So this is where we meet Eric in the fish lab, where he's like, why are all your fish scared? And he's like, no, I'm doing work for pancreatic beta cells. And he's like, yeah, okay, creepy. And he leaves. We cut through, he's like spraying through the apartment. He ends up in Charlotte's room and he's like, oh, your spider drawing is cool. And she's just like, don't spray in here. Sting won't like it. It's my pet spider. And he's like, spiders ain't good pets because they can't love you. And she's just like, I disagree. And I'm like, nah, mm-mm.
And she even says it kind of creepy. She's like in the doorway. Like,
yeah.
She's like walked into her room with him already there. And it's like she caught him doing something. Although all he was trying to do was like throw one of those bug bombs in the vent, you know?
Yeah.
But yeah, it's kind of creepy. She's like, I disagree.
I disagree. But she also is like, do you want to see the spider? And she's like, ooh, she doesn't like you. And he's like, yikes, no thanks. He gets out of there immediately.
He's like, well, you're not listening from 30 seconds ago. Spiders don't like anybody. I knew it didn't like me. It doesn't like you, Charlotte.
Right. You're feeding it. That's the only thing.
Yeah.
But we cut to the hallway where Gunter is refusing to pay him, essentially, for the work that he did. And he's like, the price is the price and my prices are fair. We're not negotiating this. And essentially, Ethan steps in to be like, just send us the invoice. And I assume Ethan is going to somehow get it paid, but like, we never see that. It will not be a problem 2 days from now.
I would hope Ethan pays the invoice, even though he is dead. I mean, he still did that work. But Gunter's being a real coonter. You know what I'm saying? Like, she's terrible. Yeah. I hated her as a landlord.
Yeah, she's the worst.
I'm just saying she has some real terrible paintings in her apartment.
Yeah.
That, like, don't have great depth perception and are probably from the late 30s. You know what I'm saying?
She was real upset that she didn't get into art school, and that's when she went into landlording.
She was like, a Vienna won't take me.
We cut back to Charlotte's room where she's feeding the spider more and more roaches. Now, we cut to Ethan's drawing, and he thinks he sees the spider, like, on the drawing table, but it turns out to just be, like, a cord block. Yeah. Basically like a hub. But we get spider vision through the vents. And we cut to Maria's apartment where her chihuahua is watching a TV show that's just Dachshunds running in hot dog costumes.
Yes, it's adorable.
Yeah.
It's like all the reels my fiance sends me. It's great. I love it. Never change.
But the dog barks at what we would assume is the spider coming out of the vent. And Maria just puts the dog out in the hallway.
Which, honestly, I was okay with because it saves that dog's life. But normally, I'd be pissed about this.
Yes.
But I was worried that dog was going to die. And I guess we technically don't see the dog die in the movie.
We don't know.
Although it is sort of implied that it will. Although I would love for a sequel to come out and like wrap that up, that it doesn't.
Yep. Regardless, we see Maria basically drinking out of a giant pitcher of sangria and mixing pills with it, which is a bummer.
Yeah, that's never something you want to do.
But the spider was in the medicine cabinet, so it ends up on her shoulder. She goes to look at the family photo. The spider crawls over the photo, jumps and bites her on the face. Her face is instantly fucked up.
Yeah.
And she falls and hits her head. So, like, it's bad already.
I thought it was very interesting that they chose to, like, give the coroner an out. So he chose to be like, no, this is a slip and fall. The spider bite came later. Like, it's shocking how many people die in their bathrooms every year, you know?
Yeah.
From like just regular slips and falls.
Well, because she slipped and falls in the kitchen. That's the first one.
No, but she dies in the bathroom. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, we haven't gotten to her dying yet.
Oh, my bad.
She gets up from the kitchen. She stumbles to the bathroom. She's looking in the mirror and we see where the bite is. She vomits. It's real gross.
Yeah.
The spider crawls into her mouth and then like out her stomach. And as that's happening, she slips and $1 million babies on the side of the tub.
Yeah.
So super dead, covered in blood. It's brutal.
Yeah, it's pretty bad.
It's pretty bad. We cut to Charlotte's apartment the next morning where she's like, is it true that Eric is a scientist? Eric is the fish guy from upstairs. And Ethan is like, yeah, he's a student and his parents pay for everything. And I think he's trying to cure diabetes with something with the fish, but like, stay away from him, please. And literally very next shot, she's like, hi, Eric, I'd like to buy a tank from you.
I thought that shit was hilarious. Like smash cuts from him being like, don't talk to Eric. Eric's a weird guy.
Yeah.
And she's like, I'm going to talk to Eric.
I'm going to talk to Eric immediately.
This is the only time she's got some real, you're not my real dad energy, but like, it serves a plot point.
It does because she's like, I've got a spider. And Eric is like, what kind of spider? And she's like, I can't find a match for that spider on Google. And she's like, do you know any spiders that get really big really fast? And he's like, well, in a few weeks they could mature. And she's like, no. this is like overnight. Do you want to watch her feed? And this is where he says, do your parents know you're here? And she feeds the spider. And he's like, spiders don't have vocal cords. This is not a spider. Or at minimum, this is a spider that we don't know about. And it may be very, very venomous. And he watches as it snatches the roach. And he's like, okay, yeah, no, this is not good. But he tells her, he's like, I'll give you a tank at no charge, but I need you to leave him with me so I can find the correct tank for him. That's all I ask, okay? And she's like, great, just bring her back when my stepdad doesn't see.
Yeah. Eric is fully intending to, like, I thought get help.
We could talk about that in a couple scenes when Ethan and Eric talk, because I have some questions about what exactly is happening in that scene.
So in that scene, I thought, that's when I was like, oh, he's not going to get help for this spider.
Well, let's wait
okay,
till we get there.
We'll stick it up in the web for the episode. We'll come back to it.
Yeah, so we cut to Charlotte's apartment where Heather, her mom, and Ethan, her stepdad, are arguing. And her mom is like, well, I could take this job and move, and then we could like fix her teeth. We could do whatever. And he's like, I don't want to try and deal with this right now because I'm also trying to do my thing. And she's like, well, if it was Liam's teeth, you'd fix it. And I'm like, I feel like that's unfair, but sure. Like, you know.
Yeah, they're not communicating well.
Not communicating well.
I mean, they separate in this movie, you know, like.
Briefly, very briefly.
Well, I mean, we don't know that they're back together.
I would say they're back together at the end of this movie.
I mean, yeah. So I think what you're saying here is clearly Ethan knew the relationship was coming to an end, so he hired Mikey's wedding counseling service to like create a life and death situation where he got to be the hero so his wife would take him back.
Well, we'll talk about it when we get to it because that's a ways away. We still have a lot to get to establish before we get there.
True.
I feel like their separation, though brief, I feel like is not super fair. We'll talk about it when we get there.
Yeah.
But so they hear scratching in the vents. He goes to investigate. It's the Chihuahua.
Yeah.
And he's like, oh, weird. I'll take it down to Maria's. So he goes to her apartment. Knock, knock, knock. No answer. No answer. And he's like, okay, well, I'm just going to put the dog in the apartment and leave. He opens the door to let the dog in, goes inside, and she is very dead and there is blood everywhere.
I mean, we saw her die, and it is very much that same scene.
Yeah.
It just shot from his perspective, and it's like, it's bad.
We cut to the police are there, and they're like, do you know anything about what happened? He's like, well, she was a big drinker, so maybe she did slip in the bathtub.
That spider's got plausible deniability. That's all I'm saying. Like in a court of law, it could be like, hey, listen, she was dead when I got here.
Right. Well, and she is mutilated, though. So that's why they're like, so.
True. I mean, the spider did climb in her mouth and cut itself out of her stomach. So, like, yeah. I'm just saying a good spider lawyer could get that down to desecration of a corpse after the fact, which is like 3 to 5, not life. You know what I'm saying?
And I don't know what that is in spider years, but like, yeah. I do think that's why they're asking him about the skeleton key, where they're like, sure, you called this in, but like,
I thought the cop was trying to build a case for Ethan. I did.
If I was that cop, I'd be investigating Ethan 100%.
He had at least the means.
Yes.
You'd have to find motive and opportunity, but.
Sure. But this is where he gets a call from Eric, and Eric is like, hi, I'm calling about your daughter. So he goes up to Eric's apartment, and Eric is like, hey, I have to study spiders as part of my degree. And I think this is a very venomous spider, and I don't think you should keep it in your apartment. That's why I'm calling you. I think we should call the Department of Health and Safety. Now, at this point, it seems like, Eric has proven himself to be a good guy and done the right thing in the right moment. Moments later, we will be proven wrong. In this moment, it's almost this dichotomy of like, he told us not to trust Eric, but then Eric is like, hey, man, I don't want your daughter or your baby to get hurt. So I'm telling you about this and telling you that I'm going to keep this spider just so you know if she asks about it or whatever.
Yeah.
Which is the right adult thing to do, I would say.
Yeah. I mean, they should have given it over to the authority or just killed it or whatever, you know, like.
Yeah. Well, and he's like, how big of a spider are we talking about? And he shows him in the jar and he just goes, fucking fuck. Like, it's a big spider.
Oh, the spider gotten big. Yeah.
Yeah. And that's not even real big for what we're going to see later.
No, but it is like almost too big for the jar it's been in its whole life, more or less.
Yes. Yeah. And so he goes with the dog because now they're going to take care of the dog in their apartment.
Yeah.
He goes down to the apartment and is like, Charlotte, were you keeping a giant venomous spider in the house with the baby? Like, what the fuck? And she fires back with like, I read your comic and it sucks. You killed the professor and you just don't like him because he's based on dad. And he's like, well, your dad don't even like you because he never visits, which is not a fair thing to do.
It's fucking brutal,
to a kid.
man. Yeah.
And it was definitely done in anger.
That's mean to say to your friend who's an adult.
Yeah.
And she's 12, bro.
And when Heather, the mom, confronts him about it, he's like, somebody has to tell her. And she's like, no, that was about you.
Yeah.
That was about you preserving your place as dad, and it didn't need to happen because she's a child and you're an adult.
Yeah.
So, like, come the fuck on.
And she did just sort of say, like, she's just like you, man. Like, she looks up to you, idolizes you even. Like, you're her dad. So, like, it's almost like, bro, we just talked about this.
Yeah.
Calm the fuck. Like, I got why she was like, what is wrong with you? Because you shouldn't say that to a child.
Yeah, of course. But we cut back to Eric's apartment where he's now feeding that spider rats and he's like, grow as big as you can. And then he looks at a wall of other animals that he has and he just says, who's next? And you're like, oh no, this is super evil. Like he just wanted the spider for himself.
Which I don't understand why. Like, it doesn't make any sense to me because he's not studying it or anything. He's just like feeding it and having it grow. And then, of course, it comes to bite him in the ass.
Yeah. We cut to Charlotte reading the comic where it's just, did I just kill my dad? 1, 2, 3, I can bring him back.
Sorry, I killed you, Dad. I thought that shit was so funny. Because it is just like one pane.
Yeah.
Like 4 windows. And it goes from like, oh, Dad's dead to like, I can bring him back to sorry, I killed you, Dad, as he's like coming back to life. It's so silly.
Yep. We cut to in Eric's apartment where the spider is in too small of a tank already. And it breaks out.
Yeah. We
cut to Helga and Gunter's apartment where Heather's putting Helga to bed. And Gunter's not being very nice about it. And she kind of confronts her about it. Gunter goes down to the boiler room where Ethan has just received a call from his publisher that basically is like, you lost the deal on your book because you couldn't do this fast enough.
Yeah.
And he's fucking furious because I'm sure he's like, I'm doing every waking moment. I am trying to do a million things and doing the best that I can. And I'm one person. And I'm not getting a break. And nobody can understand why I'm not getting a break. And that's why he's banging on the heater / boiler, because this is probably a nod to The Shining.
Yeah.
When you think about it.
I think it's sort of great. Like, he is.
It works.
Yeah. He is really frustrated in this moment. Like, I got it.
Yeah.
But Gunter shows up and she's like, hey, you're fucking fired because I'm a villain.
Yes.
And possible Nazi, but whatever. We don't get into it.
Whatever. We won't. But it's also this case of like, she's making it harder for him to do his job and then being like, why aren't you doing your job? And he's like, that's literally all I'm doing is the job that I do for you,
right,
to the point that it's jeopardizing my other jobs.
Yeah. But she fires him. She's like, you can work through the end of the month, but after that, there's no more work here for you.
Yeah. Meanwhile, Charlotte is on her phone and the dog is barking at the vent.
Yeah.
We will hear Gunter trying to find her cat at the end of the night, which, like, I don't know how things work other places, but when I lived in apartment buildings, you couldn't just let your cat roam around. Like, once or twice my cat got out and I was like, I gotta find this cat because it can't just like be in the hallway. Like, that's everyone in this apartment seems to just put their pets outside in the hallway, and that was baffling me.
It's because they live like it's a family apartment. Everyone there is like legit family, except for the lady who's dead who lived downstairs.
Yeah, but she was the one putting her dog out in the hall.
I know, it's crazy. I don't know. Like I would never put my dog in the hallway.
Yeah. It was crazy. Anyway, so Gunter's looking for the cat. She can't find it. She hears what sounds like the cat in the vent in the hallway and looks, and there's like a shadow of what looks like a spider, and she freaks out. But this is one of the few things that doesn't work in this movie because, and this cracked me up, she turns and is like, and we get a separate shot of like a hanging plant, and it's supposed to be that's what caused the shadow.
Yeah.
There's no plant there. And there's nowhere even to hang one. It does not work. It's a weird continuity thing.
Yeah. Also, the plant isn't like hanging sideways on the ceiling to where it would look like a spider.
And the ceilings are too tall to hang anything from.
Yeah.
Like, it's in the middle of a hallway. Like, that's not where you would hang anything.
You'd have to like duck out of the way of it.
Yeah. Or make sure it could clear doors. Anyway, so She then starts to climb into the vent. Her flashlight goes out. The spider snags her because it turns out it was not her cat. It was the spider. The cat is long dead.
Yeah, this is the air vent flashlight failure kill that happens in all of these types of movies.
Yeah.
And it's effective. It is jump scary. It did get me, even though I knew it was happening.
Yeah.
But Gunter's finally dead, or I'm assuming dead. We don't see her again, right?
No, we do see her again.
Oh, no, we do see her again. That's right, because we see her hanging.
She's not dead yet, but she is gonna die. Anyway.
Yeah.
So, cut back to the apartment where Ethan crumples up the very cool drawing because now he's not going to get to work on the issues of the comic book that he wanted, which is a bummer. And they can't hear Gunter screaming because of the wind. But he's trying to fix the TV and he gets shocked and kind of instinctively punches the TV.
I mean, he's like had enough.
But he also did get shocked.
Oh, yeah, he did get shocked. I just think that was like the charge that broke the camel's back. You know what I'm saying?
Yes.
Because he also just got fired from his like comic book dream job and just got fired from his actual job that like gives them that place to stay. So like, he's just in his feels and he punches the TV. It doesn't make it okay. Yeah. Like, you should not do that. But
no, but it's one of those things where, I mean, I would say that Heather doesn't know about any of that.
Any of it.
Because he hasn't even had the chance to tell her. She's never in the room long enough. She is constantly on another meeting or whatever because she's trying to do what she needs to do to keep the family going too. This is not a blame thing. It's just they have not had a chance to communicate about any of this. So he's holding it all inside.
Right.
But she goes right to get the fuck out, basically. And I'm like, hold on. I feel like maybe we do a preliminary, like, what's happening? Like, what's going on? Like, I understand sending the kids to the other room and whatever, but like, can you explain to me why this happened? Like, I might still ask you to leave, but like, what's happening? And instead she says, whatever's going on with you, it can't happen here.
Yeah.
Which would basically just immediately remove another support system. And I think if she had just been like, what's happening? And he'd been like, it's this, it's this, it's this, and this, and now we don't even have a fucking TV, and I'm sorry. That'd be a very different conversation.
Yeah, I mean, like, I would still be like, bro, you cannot do that. Like, there's a child
here. Of course not.
That is, like, traumatic for them to witness.
Sure.
I mean, it sucks that we're going to have to move because Gunter's an ass.
Yeah.
But, I mean, she's technically going to be dead soon, and it'll probably go...
They don't know that, but
yeah. They'll probably end up inheriting it somehow.
Something, yeah. Well, and who knows? Who knows what her will says? She might just be evil to the core. But, so... They send the kids to the other room and Charlotte puts her headphones on so she doesn't hear. And then the baby is asleep. The headphones, I was like, oh, does this happen all the time?
It does happen all the time, Paige, but I don't care how good your noise cancellation headphones are.
Yeah.
You're going to hear your parents they don't get murdered, but like getting murdered and dragged off by a spider. But she doesn't.
She doesn't. They literally don't even get the chance to have the argument. The spider basically tackles and paralyzes both of them and drags them through the vent.
I mean, the mom does say, I can't do this anymore.
Yeah.
She's like breaking up with him.
I think it's just because we're the audience, we're seeing the whole movie. We know what he's also going through.
Yeah. We have the context, right?
We have the context. So I'm just like, talk to him, please. Like, don't just keep piling things onto him.
Sure. He has to talk to her too. Like, it's a two.
Sure. Yeah.
They just need to communicate. But I thought it was wild that she breaks up with him.
Sure.
Then they both get paralyzed by a spider and they fall down, like sort of face to face, but they fall down in opposite directions. Mm. And then he turns over and vomits onto her face. And I was like, man, this guy's petty. He was like thinking he was dying and like, listen, if you're going to break up with me, I'm going to throw up on you.
I think that's what happened. Well, here's what I couldn't figure out because of spider law. Like, I thought the paralysis bite thing also liquefied your insides, but it seems like they're not doing that until later, but they still have people like barfing and stuff.
Yeah, Eric, the weirdo, does sort of make a show of like they like to eat human flesh, like living flesh or whatever.
Yeah.
So maybe this spider doesn't turn you to liquid immediately. Okay. It waits until it wants to eat you. I don't know. It's an alien spider. We don't know anything about it.
Yeah. Anyway, they get dragged away and Charlotte misses all of it and turns around just in time to see the spider over Liam's crib But then Liam is gone.
I mean, like, the spider has time to knock out the parents and, like, drag the parents out of the room in through the vents while Charlotte is, like, walking around the apartment with the headphones on. And the spider is always, like, one step ahead of Charlotte, which is nuts when you consider that's, like, 8 to 1 steps.
I know, but maybe that's why he's so much faster, is because he's got multiple legs.
That's what it is. He's only got 6 on the ground. The other 2 are dragging corpses. But yes.
Anyway, once she realizes it's the spider, we get the best gear up montage ever where she's just like, I know mothballs hurt this thing and let's fucking go. We got mothball juice and a super soaker and she's spraying the walls as she goes. Super smart.
Hell yeah.
She goes into the vents. She finds the dead cat. We do see that Gunter is still alive, but then Gunter gets immediately eaten.
Yeah, Gunter's Gunter. Yeah.
Yeah. We see that Charlotte crawls through into Eric's apartment. He's spidered to the ceiling. He's definitely going to die.
Oh, yeah.
She goes to her grandma's apartment, Helga, and is like, hey, have you seen anything weird recently? And she's like, yeah, there was a really weird black dog, but it always runs away from me because she's always wearing the mothball sweater.
Yeah. She's got alien spider bulletproof vest.
Yes. And so Heather's like, don't take this off, which is basically her shawl.
Yeah.
She grabs more mothballs from the house, puts them in the blender, makes a bunch of like water bottles full of mothball juice.
They're almost like grenades. I love it.
Yes. And she's like, Grandma, call the police. And she's just like, what number? What are you talking about? Realizing that she cannot give her grandmother directions to follow. They will not be remembered. She won't be able to do it. And so she just says, take care, Grandma. And then douses herself in mothball juice and leaves. And the grandma's just like, what a strange girl. Like, that's so weird.
I mean, Grandma has lost her memory, more or less. So this literal stranger is in your house.
Yeah.
And then you see them pour milky white liquid all over themselves and step outside and be like, okay, that's strange, but I'm going to go back to my horror movies.
All right. Yeah. Now, we cut to the vents because she has crawled back into the vents and she does find Ethan and the paralysis is kind of worn off. So she is able to get the webs off of him. But as they do it, the spider shows up. We cut to someone buzzing into Helga's apartment, and it's Frank. And this is the cold open. So now we are living back through it from the other side.
But we are getting like, well, what was Charlotte and her dad up to? Or stepdad, excuse me. Sorry, I know he's not your real dad, Charlotte. Yeah, what are they up to during this time? And I really like that.
So they fall down the trap door, thinking that they've heard Liam, but it was the spider pretending. They fall into a dumpster. They crawl out of it, but the spider comes down above them. This, I think, is probably the best puppet work in this movie, if this is a puppet.
I think so, too. Yeah. I also think that this is kind of cool because it's sort of like the way a trapdoor spider works.
Yes.
Because they fall down into the basement, and the basement area is locked. So they can't get out.
They can't get out.
They're trapped there.
Well, and I think this, and then there's a scene where the spider's, like 2 of its legs come out through the vent, and it's just the legs.
Yeah.
I think those 2 are the best puppet work in the movie, and it looks amazing if it's puppets.
Yeah.
We do get a scene very reminiscent of Alien 3, the one we don't talk about.
And haven't done, right?
We've not done it. And they spray the spider to get it to kind of back off. So that allows them to kind of get away. But who should drop into the room with them but Frank, who is fucking alive?
Yes.
And is like, oh shit, this is your pet spider? Why didn't you get a fucking dog? Can you neuter that fucker? It's just amazing. Amazing.
I did love Frank. Was very sad that he died. Especially when, like,
very sad.
You see him at the very beginning and he dies almost right away, so you don't really have, like, a lot of connection to him. And then when you, like, get him back in the movie, you're like, oh, I actually sort of love this character.
Yeah.
And you're like, it's sad he's going to die. And then when you see him fall into the basement and you're like, oh, he's not dead. Sweet. And then they just rip him from you again. It's the worst.
In a pretty great kill, though.
It is a pretty great kill, but he's a great character.
They tell him about the mothballs and he's like, awesome. I've also got this nail gun. Let's fucking kill this bitch. And he just starts firing nails everywhere.
Just all over the place.
He goes off.
Yeah.
And finds some blood, blue blood, spider blood. And he just says, it's bleeding. That means we can kill it.
I love that.
But he has hit one of the sprinklers, which is washing off the mothball water.
Right.
So he gets web snagged into the vent And then what I assume is that his head pops like a blood balloon because it's just a gush of blood out of the vents.
It is, yeah. I should say this, though. Frank has been in another movie we've done.
Yeah, he was in The Blackening.
Sort of recently. Yeah, he was in The Blackening. He was great in that movie, too. And he's great in this.
Yes, amazing.
Sad to see him die. And honestly, it's terrible that Charlotte and Ethan did literal nothing to help him. Like, the second he gets, like, snatched, they're just like, see you, buddy.
It was so fast. I can't blame them for that. Like, what could they have done, honestly?
I don't know.
But they climb into the garbage compactor and they pull the cord to trigger it through. And this is where they find Heather and Liam, the baby.
Yeah.
Luckily enough. It's a little serendipitous in the movie, but I will ignore it.
No, it's because that spider comes from a patriarchal planet. And it was like, that baby belongs with a woman.
I think it's almost more of like trying to lure them into the trap. Does it make sense? Like a trapdoor spider?
Oh, yeah. I mean, I think you could read it that way for sure.
Yeah.
But we don't know because it's an alien spider, guys. This spider is from space.
Regardless, they use the last of the mothball water to undo the webs.
Yeah.
So everyone's alive and awake. But the spider is now coming into the trash compactor after them. And Ethan has to reach out to plug it back in, but it is wet. So it does shock him, but it allows them to trigger the actual compactor, which smashes the spider. They climb out, they drag Ethan out with them, and Heather's giving him CPR. And we get this one moment of Charlotte being like, I can bring him back. I count to 3. I bring him back.
It's doing that comic book like scene, right?
Yeah. He does breathe. He's alive, but he definitely needs to go to a hospital. But she hugs him and just says, I love you, Dad. I love you too. And we get a pullback and we see a clutch of eggs like the alien eggs. And that's the movie.
And that is the moment where if you were like saw this in theaters and you looked around, all the stepdads are like really crying in the movie.
Sure.
Having seen the movie, having talked about the movie, what'd you think about Sting?
I really liked it. I thought it was very fun for what it is. It's a small budget, fun creature feature.
Yeah, I tend to agree. I don't care what Stuart Copeland says. I like Sting. It's pretty good. It's also a little scary if you don't like jump scares like me, but I think it's manageable because it's like pretty telegraphed. You know when they're coming, it's like that kind of jump scare, very formulaic. But I also feel like that plays into like the late 80s, early 90s creature feature of it all. So like that doesn't bother me. It's just very sort of formulaic in that way, but it's fun. But Paige, do you have any fun facts for us?
Very few, because it is still new. But
well, here it is with your fun facts. The Sting fun facts.
So they have confirmed that the nail gun is a reference to arachnophobia.
Of course.
The scene where the spider creeps up to Charlotte and she turns her head away is a nod to Alien 3. If it bleeds, we can kill it is obviously a nod to Predator. All of those things are purposeful. Now, this is the first film by the director, Kaya Roach Turner, to be set in the United States. Kaya Roach Turner is a native Australian, so this was the first time setting a movie in the U.S., but I think that explains some of our production companies being from Australia.
That makes sense.
The body count for the movie is 5 people and 1 spider. And those are your fun facts.
Well, thank you for those fun facts, Paige. Let's talk a little bit about box office. And unfortunately, sort of like what Paige was saying, there aren't a lot of box office facts. I don't even have an accurate budget. I did find that it is classified as low budget, which means it's under $5 million, but it also could have been $100,000. Like, I don't know. I bet it was more than that, but it could have been $1 million or $2 million. I have no idea. But this movie premiered in the U.S. on April 12th of this year, like literally just like a few months ago. It was 12 in the box office the week it came out. It was beat by the number 1 movie, Civil War. Number 2 was Godzilla x Kong, The New Empire. Number 3 was Ghostbusters Frozen Empire. Number 4 was Kung Fu Panda 4. And number 5 was Dune Part 2. It's a great movie. Also, number 6 was Monkey Man. And I only bring it up because I enjoyed the hell out of that movie. It was so good.
Monkey Man was so
anyway,
good.
There were a bunch of other movies, and then Sting was 12. What do you think Sting brought in its opening weekend, Paige?
I would say at best $1 million.
Okay.
But probably not. I'm going to say probably closer to 600,000.
You know what? It's actually sort of right in between your two guesses. It's right at $825,000 in its opening weekend. It was in 975 theaters, so that's not even quite a third of what is optional, like what is a nationwide release. So it didn't get in a lot of theaters. And its second week, it dropped to 253 theaters. And its third week, it was in 7. And then its fourth week, it was in 3.
Yeah.
So it didn't really have, pardon the pun, a lot of legs in the box office. But it's still, and I'll just go ahead and tell you, Paige, it still brought in 1.1 million domestically. And that is again in the U.S. Internationally, it brought in just over $1 million. So worldwide at the box office, it made 2.1 million. And that might be more than the budget. I honestly don't know. It's definitely not more than what it, like the high end of what is considered, quote, low budget would be.
Yeah.
But I would buy it if they said this movie cost us 1.5 to make. I'd be like, that makes sense.
Yeah.
You know?
I also think this was probably made with streaming in mind. And so I'm sure there was a streaming contract in place, which is why there was not as wide of a release for theaters.
Yeah. I honestly wouldn't be shocked if it was funded by that, you know, like by that streaming release. And all of this box office money was just cake on top.
Yeah.
And honestly, good for them because they made a good low budget movie. Like, I would love to see this director, and he actually wrote it too, like do bigger and bigger budget stuff because I think that they can do it effectively.
Yeah, absolutely. I would love to see this person get a big old fat budget and see what happens with it.
Yeah. But anyway, that's your box office. So, Paige, do you want to hit us with that scary scale?
Our scary scale is an indicator of how scary we found the film. Today, our number 1 being Ghostbusters, or number 10 being Texas Chainsaw Massacre. Todd, where does this rank for you today?
I'm going to give it a 3, but only because of those jump scary moments. I bet if I watched it again, it would be a 1.
Yeah.
So, like, if those specific jump scares don't bother you, you'll be fine watching this.
Yeah.
They just really get me.
I'm going to give it a 2.
Yeah, that's fair.
That's about where I'm at.
Yeah.
So that's your scary scale.
So, Paige, this week, you made us watch Sting. What are you making us watch next week?
Next week is the listener request.
Oh, that's right. This was listener request. And the listener request theme for this month was just recent horror releases. So any movie that has been released in the past 2 years, we were considering for this month's theme. And our Patreon family whittled it down to these 4 finalists, and they are Totally Killer, Lisa Frankenstein, The First Omen, and Abigail. And Abigail won by like 10%. It pretty much crushed it. So your homework for next week is to watch Abigail and then report back for that episode.
Todd, do you have a review for us today?
I do, but I will start, as we often do, with a Spotify comment. And this is going to be from our most recent episode, which was our Late Night with the Devil episode.
Ooh, still loved that movie.
It's honestly another Australian but great movie. And this one comes from Anime Flower Child, and they say, in all caps, mind you, I will stand up for the theremin. They're really cool. Probably not a group instrument since it would get overwhelmed, but it's basically a string instrument with an invisible string and bow. And I'll say, sure, I'm glad you're into it, but it also sounds like something that a transformer would catch that it would need whatever the robot version of penicillin is to get over.
I have seen people play just theremin on its own and do some cool things with it where it doesn't just sound that way.
Sure.
But that's why I think it's not a group instrument. Like, it has to be its own thing. It shouldn't be in a band, is all I'm saying.
Agreed. But Anime Flower Child, thank you so much for setting me straight on the theremin. I also do want to read this 5-star Apple review, and it comes from True Crime XOXO. And they say, don't... This is the title of the review. Don't poop on the floor and miss out.
Okay, I won't.
Which page clearly is a reference to Mikey shitting his own floor, which I think technically was revealed on a Romance in the Pod episode, but I'll take it here.
It was, but we talked about shitting on the floor on a recent episode, and now I don't remember which one it is.
Me either. It comes up so often. You'd be surprised.
Yeah.
So they go on in the review to say, don't poop on the floor and miss out on this amazing podcast. The 2 hosts, Mikey will be missed dearly. Can't wait for him to guest soon. Just ooze chemistry. You can tell you're just listening to actual friends sit down once a week on a Zoom call, which is very much what this is.
That is very
We
true.
typically don't start recording for the first 30 minutes because we're just catching up and shooting the shit.
Yeah, we have to tell each other the weird things that happened that week.
Exactly. They go on to say, Paige has helped change my perspective on not only my own self-image, but how I see shoulders.
Hell yeah.
They're everywhere, Paige.
But not good ones. There's a shortage of perfect shoulders in the world. It would be a pity to damage any.
That's one we should do for Romance of the Pod. And Todd has made me realize that it's okay to talk and share about your trauma. Sometimes too much. Well, okay, that's a weird note
right.
veiled in a compliment, but I'll take it. I'm not so
we
patiently
did reset the brother counter today. So.
Oh, shit. Yeah, my bad. Not so patiently waiting for Jason X, one of these Friday the 13th.
Oh, yes.
It's just the best in the series, and I'll fight anyone who says otherwise. And True Crime XOXO, thank you so much for that awesome 5-star review. And if you want to have me read your 5-star review or Spotify comment, leave us one of those things and I'll do just that.
I am also excited for Jason X.
Hell yeah. So guys, if you like this show but want to hear Paige and I talk about romantic comedies or just regular romantic movies, check out our other podcast, some might call it a sister podcast, called Romancing the Pod, where we do just that weekly. It's a lot like this show, but for romance and romantic comedies, because Paige doesn't like them. So we make her watch them, just like you guys make me watch horror over here. But if you want to follow me, I am at Todd J. Awesome on all the social media. Paige is at Rampage Wesley on Instagram?
Yes, and TikTok.
And just Paige Wesley on Twitter, because you got that before some CEO lady and she wanted it, but you wouldn't give it back, and I respect you for that.
Refuse.
Also, Paige
Suck it, other Paige Wesley.
Paige is also on another podcast. It's great. You should check it out. It's called Cult Podcast with Armando Torres, who is a wonderful person. And if you want to support this show, go to Patreon at patreon.com/horrorvirgin, where there are a lot of great levels and a lot of great things. We do the Patreon shout outs at the beginning of every episode. We do listener requests, stuff like that, bonus episodes. So you'll be getting all of that content, plus episodes a day early with no ads, and who doesn't love that? So sign up for the Patreon and get a lot of great stuff.
That's going to be it for us, you guys. I'm Paige.
And I'm your horror virgin, Todd.
Keep it ooky spooky.
Yeah. Have an amazing week, guys. Don't sting so close to me. Bye. I think that's 4. I think I made 4 subtle police references.
I think you got 4 in there.